And we are back. Thank you all so much for your patience. We've got Wary64 here with Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. But quickly, before we get into that, I do have some new incentives set up that I would like to make sure everybody is aware of that we are working towards. We're still pushing for that robot apocalypse. It is currently 57.36. We're looking for about $43 more to be able to have that goal reached. Alongside that, we've got the Crypt of the Necrodancer double time mode, which needs $150. And then last but not least, there is a bid war for which Pokemon you would like to see be played for Pokemon Puzzle League. We've got Pikachu, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle.
Bulbasaur.
With Bulbasaur.
Bulbasaur.
Bulbasaur is a bean. I love him. Good squishy fella. If you'd like to tell us about this very cool new game that's come out recently, I'd love to hear about it.
Definitely. So this is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. This came out in, I think, the middle of January this year. It had a $10,000 challenge that have been put on by speedrunners before, basically to draw interest and attention to the game. Unfortunately, it didn't really last, and due to some weird rules for submissions, I haven't seen much activity for the speedrun. So this actually does about half of the game, and it is a little bit more approachable than the full game. That's about it. It's very fast. It's going to be hard for me to talk about in a couple spots, but I will give plenty of warning for when stuff like that happens. Other than that, I think we're good to go. So the requirement for the speedrun mode, it's basically just going to put a timer in the top right corner. For this mode, that's about all we'll notice. We play on the easiest difficulty, just makes things a little bit smoother. And time starts when Sargon, who is the player character, moves for the first time, or about around there. So pretty much 3, 2, 1, we should be going, and the timer did not start, which is cool. So one of the cool things that we get to do right off the bat is bind multiple inputs to one input, essentially, which allows us to slide super fast. Instead of before we had to like charge our slide or charge our sprint and then slide. Here we're just trying to get through some of this combat as fast as possible. These guys die pretty fast. And then we get interrupted.
Hey, who's having all the fun?
So this section is fairly just a lot of sliding. We're going to be doing a bit of a tech called sword hovers. So basically what we're going to do is do a series of up and down attacks in rapid succession in the air, which allow us to move, basically delay our fall. And we're going to try to get it here to skip something. Skip a barrier. Oops. This is something that I actually just learned recently, so it's a little bit tricky still for me. Luckily, this place where we're at, there's not really any way to gain or lose time here. So I can more or less just keep repeating it until we get it, and if we don't get it, then it's fine. Oh no. So I actually do switch from controller to mouse and keyboard for this just because it is a little bit easier to be consistent. Okay, that's not gonna work. What's left? There we go, okay. So typically what would have happened if we had got the skip is there's an invisible barrier that's over that, or invisible wall that's over that barrier that was preventing us from proceeding. We would have basically just climbed right over it. here is just some more combat. This introduces us to brutal counters, vengeful counters, I think. Which are basically when the yellow light shows up and you counter it, some cool stuff happens. And now we're introduced to the character Bahram, who is Persia, but he somehow got lost and thinks he's in an anime. I don't know. He does some cool stuff. And here, we're gonna do a charge attack, which will break, shoots out a beam that'll break the gate and allow us to get to this cutscene faster. And now we're in our first boss battle, which is generally Vishka. Bosses in this game are generally not that difficult, but they can be treacherous at times. Something that we typically do for combat is rather than doing a full attack combo of 3 to 4 attacks, we'll do 2 attacks and then a back step, which basically just lets us attack faster. And now this is just a bunch of cutscenes, and I believe that we had, between the bid war, chosen to use a different skin, which is the Sands of Time skin. If anybody who's played Prince of Persia Sands of Time, they put in this skin, which turns us into the prince from Sands of Time, and it looks very goofy. So now we just have some platforming here, cutscenes to skip through, and now we're back into action again. So got some guards, some things have happened at the palace, looks kind of weird, and we're gonna do what's called Athra Surges now, which basically Sargon goes Super Saiyan, and holds some inputs, and it does like a bit of a powered attack, good for clearing large amounts of enemies, clear through some enemies, skip a cutscene, and then now we have the Swordmaster. This is a really annoying fight, but we can cheese him just by kicking him into the corner, and then okay. Normally you kick him into the corner, and then you can just do down attacks, and he cooperates and just lets you go fast, and he dies quickly, but I guess not. So one thing that I wanted to explain, I've never actually played this game casually, so I have no clue what the story is, apart from we're going to this place called Mount Calf, and there's ghosts and enemies and like sand soldiers. Time passes differently for different people. Really strange. We have just some fast movement here, so if there's any announcements or anything to talk about, it'd be a great time to do it.
What is this sorcery?
If you'd be okay with it, I can talk a bit about what's going on.
Definitely, yeah.
Of course. Just wanted to remind everybody that what we're watching right now is Slurpathon, and Slurpathon here is raising money for Extra Life, which raises funds for the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Proceeds go to the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation. Last year, Slurpathon raised $2,451.13 for Extra Life. In fact, we're actually like less than $200 away from passing that. If we could get another $200 in donations between now and the end of this event, we'll have outdone last year's Slurpathon.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Okay, so
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna try something. here, which is we can use the momentum from the bridge going up to actually fling us up in the air. Which of course we're gonna get. Oh, hey. Okay, never mind. It can be very finicky sometimes, and it's usually faster just to not do it unless you can get the angle down. Okay, we're back to kind of just movement again, so I apologize for cutting you off before.
Oh no, you're perfectly fine. It would. I was looking forward to it. It seemed like it was a really cool setup. It was definitely worth bringing attention to.
Yeah, there's a couple things where I'm gonna try them and they just don't work because sometimes the game just doesn't love it. Okay,
So,
quick. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Here, there's a skip. Oh no! Oh no!
What brings you here?
Never mind. I ended up sliding off that platform. Normally we would skip that cutscene by doing some more sword hovers, but I kind of messed it up. Okay.
She really wanted to see you.
I guess so. I don't know.
She really missed you after all of those times that you skipped her in the
I
past.
know. Okay. This is more just movement now. I promise this time.
It's okay. It's okay. Funds raised go to the Alberta Children's Hospital as unrestricted funds. This means the hospital decides where and how to spend the money to ensure that the dollars raised make the biggest impact possible. We've got a good collection of incentives going on still here, such as the robot apocalypse in Unsighted. We've got the double time mode for Crypt of the Necrodancer that I would love to see happen as well. We've also got those 3 Pokemon in a bid war for Pokemon Puzzle League that we could be going for. Lots of great options that I would love to see get filled out if anybody would like to make some donations. On top of that, Wary, would you be interested in the synonym of the day?
Synonym of the day. What is the synonym? Yes.
Yes. The synonym of the day is extremely. It's a synonym for extremely specifically.
Extremely. Drastically.
Can you drastically? Ooh, that's a good one. I would say intensely.
Ooh, intensely is also good.
Let's see. Synonym is inordinately.
Inordinately. Okay, interesting.
So extremely means to a very great degree, where inordinately suggests an excessive or unusually high degree. Extremely is commonly used in a wide range of contexts to emphasize high degrees, while inordinately implies an excessiveness to that is beyond normal limits.
Interesting. So that was the lost prisoner that we had just fought, or the undead prisoner rather. Pretty basic fight. We actually didn't get played around with too much during it. Normally it can be very annoying with some of its unblockable attack. Now we're in the Hyrcanian Forest, where basically there's a gimmick where a lot of the platforms will shrink up after you stand on them, so you have to be fast moving through them. We just met Camille, who gave us a very important Aether Surge that we're never going to use. And it's basically just sliding through some fun platforms for a little bit. We're coming up to a spot where we're actually going to use a sword hover here to avoid a boss called Erlich. And what Erlich forces us to do is fight him to get bow. But instead, because of the sword hovers, we're just not going to fight him. So sorry, Erlich, I guess.
I'm sure he was very excited to see you, but you know, the clock is more important than meeting up with friends and rivals.
What's actually funny is I don't even know what Erlich looks like. I've never fought him before.
The poor guy, he's just like, I just want to meet Wary. And Wary keeps going, you just keep going straight over him.
Yep.
And he's probably just sitting there pouting. Like, I don't know, he's probably figured out something to do.
Accurate.
Like,
so
maybe solitaire.
We've got the bow now, and what the bow is going to let us do is hit these flowers in the air and open up some platforms that we couldn't open up before. It's also going to allow us to hit one of those, like, weird temporal pockets that we saw when we were climbing earlier. So I guess I didn't really explain. This is a Metroidvania, so there is a little bit of backtracking. But for the most part, we move in one direction. Also, anytime there are birds or, well, just birds, it sucks. This is not the only Prince of Persia game that I have speedrun. I have also speedrun Sands of Time, hence the Sands of Time skin. And I had a bit of a mantra for that of birds, bats, and baths are the worst part. Prince of Persia Sands of Time has an NPC character that follows you around, and the game doesn't know what to do with her half the time, so the baths section, when you're trying to manipulate a couple things, can just end your run and the game crashes because it doesn't know where to put the NPC. But luckily this game does not have that issue, so we just go fast, which is the whole point of the game. We're gonna meet Menelaus again. We have his bow, and he's gonna give us his chakram, so we're just taking everything from Menelaus. And the chakram allows us to hold things like gears in place to open up gates. And then we're just not gonna use it because we can just sword hover over stuff. So the chakram was a cool item for the couple times that we have to use it. Yep.
What's your favorite piece of movement tech in this game?
My favorite piece of movement tech in this game is something that we are about to come up on. We just have to fight one more boss. It is called Flight of the Simmer, and basically what it lets you do is an air dash. And that will open up a lot of faster movement tech. When it comes to just lateral movement on the ground, the dashes are still faster. But the Flight of the Simmer allows you to do some pretty cool stuff when you're trying to climb anything.
I can't wait to see it.
It's incredible. So we're coming up on one of the first treacherous bosses, as I had previously said, so I'm going to take a bit of a safety save here for a checkpoint. And we're about to fight Jahandar. And Jahandar is a manticore, which is partly a lion, partly a scorpion. He's very rude. Luckily, something we can do is sort of manipulate a lot of his movement. And make the fight a little bit more bearable. Oh no. There's some DLC for this game that just came out this week, actually, which has... I've noticed a couple things that have changed with some of the fights and the game in general. This being one of them. You used to be able to stun him with the Aether Surge there to stop him from creating that block of thunder, or that ball of thunder. Basically what that's gonna do is, like, try and strike us with lightning. Oh no. Oh no. Jahandar can send his tail, which is kind of the tail of the scorpion, through the ground and try and impale us with it, and it also poisons us. This is the first introduction we have to poison as a mechanic. It is something we're going to deal with quite heavily later on. Oh dear. Sorry, I'm gonna focus just for a second here, because this can be where it gets a little bit... Okay, we're good. And that is Jahandar. And so coming up on our first Feather of the Simmer, which basically is how we get our abilities. Now if you get too close, you have to walk, and he like trudges through some air that is pushing back against him, and it's very slow. You cannot run through it. So instead we do the Aether Surge, and that basically lets us skip that section and we go right into the Feather. So now, as I had mentioned before, we have... Oh, Rush of the Simmer, sorry, not Flight of the Simmer. And that lets us do the air dash, as I had talked about before. So this is basically just going to let us go very quick.
Any sign of the three?
And then now we've got some time. It's just some sliding for about a minute or two. If there's anything to talk about that you wanted to bring up.
No, nothing. I'm just gonna force
Okay.
you to sit here awkwardly in silence.
I can do that. I am
No.
locked in. Oh no, I lied.
Yeah, no, I've got. Actually, you mentioned a bit ago that you played the Sands of Time as well.
Yes.
Would you be willing to share some of your history with Prince of Persia?
So this is a game that I first played. I think I must have been, or Sands of Time, rather. It's a game I must have played for the first time. I think I would have been 7 or 8 years old. And we rented it from Rogers. And played through a chunk of it, never got to finish it, because as I got to the end, it turned out there was something wrong with the disc, and it froze at a certain cutscene. Always. So my parents, or my uncle, one of the two, actually went out and bought the game, because he was also playing it at the same time. And we both wanted to finish it. And so we had the game at that point, and we basically just kept playing it. Eventually we ended up selling it, and I moved and ended up with a neighbor who owned the game. And I borrowed the game from my neighbor, and I played through it again. And I noticed that I played through it faster. So on the PlayStation 2 memory card, it actually will save the amount of time that you would put into the game in your save file on your memory card. So I would play through the game and notice, oh, I beat it a half hour faster. So I decided to play it again. Beat it an hour faster. Till eventually it came down to I was beating it in under 4 hours. And then speedrun.com had become a thing. And I just started playing it faster. That guy, sorry, just real quick, is the jailer. I call him the jailer. He will pick you up with his little pincers there, and you just go poof to jail. That is slow, and we don't want to do that. It's not very hard to get back, but I mean, it's still time that we don't want to spend. So there, we have successfully evaded him the first time. We're going to run into him 2 more times. We shouldn't have to interact with him at all. I'm going to call down an elevator here, but I'm not actually going to use it because elevators are slower, or elevators are fast, but they're not as fast as me. And now we're into the next section with the jailer, but we're just gonna kind of go over him. And we're gonna try and activate something. So there is sort of like fast travel between points, if anybody has ever played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, where I'm gonna try and... No, okay. There's a gate that you can activate here that typically you try and activate with arrows, but instead I will have to come and actually attack it, and that's the Homa Statues Network. So what that does is when we activate another gate, we can actually go between the 2 gates, and that is going to be a very important piece of, well, a very important thing for us to do for later when we have to go back and forth between this area and a section called the Catacombs. And... What? This thing usually does not move until you step right there where I just stepped. So the fact that it was already... that's... And I have no... Oh no.
The jailer set it up for
Oh,
you
no.
in advance.
I don't have arrows. Okay, hold on. This is not good. Is there arrows up here? Oh, there isn't. Oh no. Okay. Come down here. Grab some arrows real quick. So now because we've run into the jailer there, we actually have to evade him for the rest of this room, which is not as bad, but typically it's something that we can avoid doing. We have these bells that we can hit with our arrows, or really our sword, that kind of create these other dimension platforms that we can land on that last for a certain amount of time. And we're just going to be sliding and, you know, dashing and jumping for a good chunk of the section. You'll notice my health is low and I have no potions, and I'm not worried about it at all because the next boss coming up is, remember the Varam, the anime guy? He's actually going to be the next boss we fight. I don't know why. Like I said, I've never played this game casually. I have no clue what the story is. I just know there's some characters that are good, and then bad, and then maybe good again. I don't know. And we actually need him to kill us, essentially, because that is the most fastest way to get through the fight. So, you ideally going through the into the battle with 1 hit of damage left, or 1 hit of health left, less than 1 bar, however you want to call it, is optimal. Here we've got it's supposed to be a puzzle, but it really isn't for us because we just kind of go quickly and ignore everything. We have to call this platform down, basically. And then activate another platform to come down with this chakram switch. And then we're going to go back up with this platform and land here and recall our chakram, and that's puzzle is done. And that is about the most use that the chakram is going to see for the rest of the run. We're going to run into another one of those sword master enemies. But we can just hit him with an Athra Surge, and he kind of just dies. So he definitely doesn't give us as hard of a time as he did the first time we fought him. We run into the old man, who tells us we're here at last, but I don't really ever remember meeting him, so I have no clue what he's talking about. He becomes pretty important later in the run. Got some platforming here. There's gonna be some enemies that we fight here right before an elevator. We're gonna take the elevator up, and fun fact is, like, physics in this game are weird, so if I actually jump, I move. So you can actually fall off the elevator, and it's bad, and I totally haven't done it before.
That sand can't be far
Definitely not. Why?
No.
That would never,
No, never
ever
happened.
happen.
No. Marathon RNG, that's never happened before yet. Okay, so this is the Varam fight. So we want Varam to damage us, and then we want him to use that, basically that attack he just used with the beam. We're gonna try and trigger a cutscene skip. So I'm gonna probably just play this a little safe and have him hit us with that and then we're gonna try and hit him with an arrow, and we got it. So normally he does like a anime, I call it the anime scene, where he like pulls out his katana and hits you 5 million times and you just kind of crumple, and then we hit that scene of Sargon getting knocked back. But instead we skipped that by hitting him with a projectile at the same time, and just go right to the skippable part of the cutscene. So this is the sewers, or the depths actually, and this is the worst part of the run normally, so I will need to focus in a couple sections of it. I'm gonna take a couple safety saves just because normally in a run you wouldn't hit as many of the whack whack trees as I am. So if you die at all, you have to go all the way back from the beginning of this section, which is brutal. This is where we actually encounter more of the poison mechanic that we had already dealt with, because we get to deal with all the raw sewage from a city that hasn't had anybody living in it for thousands of years. So we're just gonna try not to get poisoned. I will also... This section is the most awful, and I will be donating $10 for every time I die. Something that I should have said earlier. But this is the most likely part of dying, so we'll see what happens. I think we might be okay though. So we have a bit of a long elevator ride. It's not as long as the ladder from Metal Gear Solid, but Sargon says he's fast for an old man. That old guy that we were kind of dealing with before is stolen our eye, actually, and so we have to basically chase him down to get the eye back. And I know what you're thinking, oh no, Sargon's missing an eye. It's not actually his eye, it's the eye that lets us like mark locations on the map, so it's a little bit misleading. So this is a room that fills up with that gross sewage, and we're just gonna kind of platform around it to activate a lever that will drain the room. And then we can keep going.
I don't know why he needs an eye to write on the map when you could just use, like, I don't know, a marker or a pencil.
That's kind of what I'm wondering. So, we are coming up on another boss here that is fake Sargon. It's actually alternate Sargon, but like it's fake because I'm the real one. And he probably won't look as cool as me either. So, something I actually found, oh no, recently is you can, no, get on me. I'm having trouble keeping track of which one's me. Is we can kick him. Oh, and if we can kick him close enough to a wall. We can kick him close enough to a wall he doesn't use that on us. And we can kind of just stun lock him into taking lots of damage. I am not going to use my Athro Surge because we have another feather coming up that I need to save it for. There we go. A little bit uncooperative bosses as goes with marathons. So here's another feather. We're going to get a little bit closer and then use the dash. And we have to walk a little bit here, but I accidentally enter the zone where you are forced to walk all the time, and I'd rather not do that. So now we get the ability to basically summon Shadow Sargon. And that's called Shadow of the Simmer. And what it's going to let us do is place a version of Sargon. Oh, the old man gave us our eye back, by the way. So now we can see where we have to go, which is the Pit of the Eternal Sands.
Look for her within the. You must.
We get to create a shadow copy of Sargon and then recall to it. And we're going to use this to solve some puzzles and throw some switches. Just remember that we are on our way back to the Sacred Archives, and it puts us out of our way quite a bit. This is one of the only unskippable cutscenes in the game, and it is very awful, and we're mashing right through it as fast as I can. And now we can skip through the rest of them, and it makes no sense to me why it's that cutscene specifically, but we're on our way back to the Sacred Archives, and for a very important reason, we have to get another power that's going to let us break the seals on the Pit of Eternal Sands. And just remember how much time this is taking, that we have to go all the way back up there instead of going right back to the Pit of Eternal Sands, or right down to the Pit of Eternal Sands. Yeah, don't worry about it. Oh no. So part of it is we needed the Shadow of the Simmer to be able to come down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to place a shadow, and then the trap's going to move back up, we're going to recall to the shadow, and we're going to drop back down. Oops. And now we're going into probably the smoothest section of movement, which is the catacombs. I'm not going to be talking much here just because I do have to focus, because it is fast and it's dark and there is some pathfinding to be done, and it's very easy to get turned around. So that will start once we meet Calyx, who is down here at the Whack Whack Tree. Calyx, originally when this game came out, was voiced by the TikTok AI voice. And then people complained, so they got an actual voice. So this is where the movement is going to get very fast.
I could see why a TikTok voice would get grading in an actual game.
And I usually slide past that guy a little bit, extra just because he likes to shoot his tongue out at you, and it's pretty rude. Kind of like the xenomorph from Alien. It's just not, good. So we just kind of avoid him a bit. And then we gotta throw the chakram. The chakram sees some more use. See that tongue right there? It's ugh. And then this is that other gate that I was talking about. So we're gonna go back to the Sacred Archives, to the one that we have already opened, and kind of just keep going. We have to go to a portion of the Sacred Archives that we couldn't access before. So Shadow of the Simmer, totally necessary, because remember that platform that bamboozled me before? Well, on the other side, this one always moves, and there's no way to avoid it unless you can just summon a shadow clone of yourself. We're gonna go up here, not down. There's another elevator you have to go down twice, and I always get them confused. So luckily, at least one thing is going right in this room for me. And we're gonna hit a section where we get to use more bells. And we're gonna enter a little bit of a room where these blocks will just try and do that. And we don't want that to happen because that's bad. And now we're gonna basically we're gonna go into a room first actually where the blocks protrude from the wall based off of the direction that you're facing. And this is just a section with some metal. Nothing really fancy here, so this would be a great time for anything quick to talk about.
I could definitely talk a little bit more about Slurpathon. Remind everybody that we are currently seeking more donations that could be put towards Extra Life, which is going to raise funds for the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. We're like $200 away from beating the record of our last Slurpathon. I would love to see that happen. I'm sure it's gonna happen, but it would be absolutely incredible to actually see.
We can do it, I believe.
Indeed.
Okay, so this is another quick spot of movement with those directional platforms like I talked about before. And now we've entered a room where the screen's all orange around the corners because there's a singer who is just over to the side there. Who is stopping us from dealing damage to enemies. So all the enemies are invulnerable. They kind of are just in my way right now, but it doesn't really matter because there's a switch up there that normally we'd have to solve a puzzle for, but we're just going to skip it by throwing the chakram at it. And then more of these blocks that are going to try and get in the way, and here we have these, I don't know what you call them, I call them little wizards because they're annoying. But we're going to drop a shadow clone and go on that block, and we just avoid everything. Gonna leave shadow here, shoot the bell, recall the shadow, and do some cool. Why are you following me? I haven't. That does. That's never happened before moment. Interesting. Okay. Luckily that didn't actually screw anything up.
Just wanted to hang out for a few more seconds.
Yeah, I guess so. Alright, so here we're coming up on some trials that we have to do, and basically there's 4 of them, and what they are is they give us 3 different, like, ghosts in each trial. We're gonna try and only use 2 of them if we can. This is one section where we actually do have to use all 3. But after this we should be able to just use 2. We're gonna try and grab these tablets. And then we can go up to the one above us. This room has you gotta be extremely precise with the movement in this next one because it is very, locked onto time. And I might not actually get it the first time. I don't know, this is gonna be close. So what that did is it opened up a gate. And what we're gonna try and do is just nice. Okay, we did get it. You kind of beat the timer there. You gotta about a half second after the 0.0 time comes up to actually get into that chamber. This third one is very interesting. So we're just gonna stand here for a little bit, and then at about the 6-second mark, I'm gonna try and get up here and drop a shadow. And what this is gonna let me do is recall to the shadow and just go on that platform that I had stood on for a few seconds. Take some time. And then we have the fourth and final one, which this one is... I don't really know how to describe it, other than it looks like it should be a lot more tricky than it actually is. It's a lot larger. It seems like a place you would use all 3 of these clones, but no. We only need 2. So I put a shadow clone on the other side of that gate that comes down, and then wait out the clock on the switch that puts out the platform, and then I'm gonna come over here. And as soon as I step on that switch, we're gonna recall, and we can just jump and get the last tablet. So now we're gonna get that ability that I was talking about earlier, which allows us to basically change dimensions at will. Unfortunately, it's not as cool as Link Between Worlds going into, you know, being a picture frame or a picture and all that stuff, but like, I guess it's okay. So this is our last feather that we're gonna get. We're gonna get pretty close to it. This one has like a zone that it puts around it to kind of let you know when you're gonna get sucked in to the slow moving section. Luckily, I've done a pretty good job with this attempt at avoiding walking. And so now what we're gonna be able to do, I don't know why it focuses on his boots all the time, is we can change our dimensions and activate these little blocks. And it's a super important ability. We're going to use it like 3 times. Mostly, it's going to see the most use getting out of this room. That's it. There's one more section that we're going to use it for. So now we have all of the requirements met to actually be able to proceed into the Pit of Eternal Sands. And so we're just gonna head that way now. We're coming up on the end. We're going back down into the catacombs. We have to proceed a bit deeper through the catacombs, but there are no more bosses for this run. So we basically just get to move fast and fight some yucky enemies. And open those yucky doors. Hey. And... Oh, okay, got it. Here we gotta use the shadow to throw a lever and then quickly recall and slide through it. Nice. We're gonna get one more enemy pops in there. He's gonna... Oh, he's actually gonna hit us, not just try. Interesting. There is one final monster that is very annoying, and it's gonna be right here. And it actually blocks your progress. That's another reason we needed the Shadow of the Simmer. So now we can just place a clone and fly right past them. And I don't believe there's any more enemies for the rest of it. We're gonna reach the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and Calyx is gonna say, well, we don't need to help you anymore. Our last safety tree. To get some arrows, because right here, there's a section where we used to have some invisible barriers to climb, but they've patched that, so now we just have to casually, like, clip through the ledge instead. So that was the first seal to break. There are 3. We're gonna skip a cutscene with the old man who's there by breaking this one with a charge attack. Also, the fact that I got that first try clipping through the ledge, I've done that like maybe once, so that's pretty good luck. So remember, we had to go and do all that work to get that ability. That was the only thing we used it for. And that is time. 41:18. This is very fast.
That is incredibly good time.
That was not far off my PB, which I am very shocked at, honestly.
You said you were doing like sloppy in parts, like
that's what I felt. Oh no.
the part that you said, "Oh, this is I'm gonna donate every time I die," you didn't die a single time.
I
this
realize
run.
that now. That's okay though. Extra Life and the fact that they benefit the or support the Children's Miracle Network is actually very important to me. Typically, I raise money for them every year. My sister and I were both in, basically, I don't know if you'd say NICU, but something similar at BC Children's Hospital when we were both born. We were both born very premature. So instead, I'm actually gonna just donate $100 anyway. In support. So I appreciate, the hosting. I appreciate, being able to show off this run. It's very fun, very good if anybody's interested in it. The game itself, I'm slowly working through casually. It's very cool. I just don't know anything about it. So, yeah, that's
It's a game you're slowly enjoying, but you're still avoiding everything.
absolutely.
Just anti-plot game.
Exactly. I know nothing about this game. Like I said, I couldn't tell you why we're even here.
Never need to know anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
We just go fast.
Definitely. So
And honestly, it's more fun that way. You can't accidentally spoil things for anybody who might
Exactly.
be interested in the plot in the world.
I don't know it.
You just go fast.
Except for the parts where we had to go slow, but luckily there weren't very many of them, so apart from getting bad AI for bosses in just about every segment.
Yeah. And a couple of friends following you around.
Yeah, so that's the run. Highly encourage anybody who's interested to take a look at it.
One last reminder as we move over to the next game that we are still working towards the incentive for the robot apocalypse for Unsighted. We're about, let me double check one more time with my slow, $43 away. If anybody would like to make a donation towards that, it would be greatly appreciated. And going to as unfortunate it would be for the world of Unsighted, it would be going to a great cause in ours. On that note, we will be right back as we get set up for Unsighted.